This is a Heart and Hand production.
Hello folks and welcome back to Let's Go the Gerrard Era. We are on to episode 55 and the end is near for our time on the Gerrard Express as we on today's show wrap up October 2021 and go into November of that year, and then that's it. The curtain comes down and the show's over for Steven Gerrard as Rangers manager, but we've still got a very busy show to talk about. And joining me this week, I'm delighted to say we have got a full squad with us this week. So firstly, a big hello to David Edgar.
Hello, David. Hello to all the other guys as well. And hello to the listeners. Yes, this time waits for no man. And we've had ups and downs on the Gerrard show. At least we've had some ups. There have been managerial seasons we've done that didn't have any. And we'll soon come into a few managers who have that. But yes, there have been at least a few ups to go with the downs. But this is quite a downbeat episode, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And joining myself and David this week, we have from all the way in Glasgow, Scotland this week, we're delighted to say we have got Rob Shorthouse.
I'm in Scotland. I think this is the first time in the 5 years I think I've been doing this show. It's the first time we've ever recorded one that's not at fucking 3 a.m. or whatever time it is that I normally get up to do it. So
I think we did another one. I think there was one when you came over for a visit and you were here to do a recording. But yeah,
no, he was over for a visit and he didn't do one. He missed it.
That's
for
right.
2 weeks. He was actually in Scotland. Yeah, despite being close. But that's the internet these days. You know, it's a small world. It's compressed.
So our listeners will
and look, it's you know what. Sorry, before you resume your slagging me off. Genuinely, one of the first people I met in Glasgow this week, 'cause I'm over for the Commonwealth Games, and I went in to get the team suit measured up, and the wee guy who was measuring me up said, "You Rob Shorthouse from Heart and Hand." So there you go. Yeah. So I'm sure it happens to you boys all the time. But Sam the Taylor.
No, nobody ever asked me if I'm Rob Shorthouse from Heart and Hand. That literally has never once happened to me. But we'll need to wait and see if the listeners prefer him. Dave, what do you think? You know, did they like tired Rob who's just up and it's 4 a.m?
I think we're off to a bad start because we couldn't agree between us if this is a late kickoff or an early kickoff for Rob. So that doesn't bode well. But it'll be interesting to see. It must be nice, you know. To I'm sure there's still a wee guy somewhere that's got a track on you. Just make sure you're toeing the party line.
100%.
Obviously, I still love communism. I mean, let's not kick it.
And who doesn't?
Maybe it doesn't. Yes, exactly. God bless those we mad Chinese bastards. But yeah, genuinely, I know. Look, this is going to be a downbeat show, but it is very nice to be in Scotland and to be able to catch up with some of you boys and record this show. So yeah, delighted to be here.
And rounding off our quartet this week, we have got, of course, Stuart McCall.
Hi, gentlemen. Yeah, it's been a long old show, this one, but it's been highly enjoyable, and it's sad for it to come to an end, isn't it? It's a bit sad.
It was sad at the time.
It was very sad at the time. Anger was more my recipe that week. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we will.
We will. Unfortunately for this show, we do have to start off in quite a somber note. As our first game this week was scheduled for the 27th of October for a midweek game hosting Aberdeen at Ibrox. The day before, we all received the sad news of the passing of Walter Smith after he had quite a long battle with cancer, and sadly passed away on the 26th of October 2021. News that devastated, you know, everyone involved with Rangers. And Dave, I'll go to you first. I mean, there's just no words to describe this, man, and just how hard this hit every single one of us.
The closest I've come to a sort of apt description is Martin, who in his tribute said that Walter walks through the history of Rangers like a colossus. And it's true. And we've discussed many a time on the site, you know, greatest Rangers and greatest players and whatnot. But for me, there is a Mount Rushmore of Rangers, and that's reserved for truly the greatest, and he's on it. To me, to my generation, and to you boys' generation, actually, because you got the return. A Rangers manager, when you ask me, well, describe a Rangers manager, he's a cool guy who looks $1 million in a club suit with silver hair. And that will always be, you know, Walter Smith to me is the Rangers manager. It really is that simple. He epitomised everything I love about the club, everything I want the club to be. He was somebody you could look up to. It was somebody you could admire. The way he carried himself, the strength and the calmness that he would always sort of project, even when times were tough, and his success. And I've said before that as great as the 90s were, the thing that cemented Walter's greatness for me was the second spell. It's so completely different in terms of circumstances, and yet he just delivered at the same rate. Astonishing feat of management, it really was. But that, you know, what he did as a manager was one thing. It was the person, and that I think was why the loss felt so devastating. And I think that, you know, I spoke to a couple of fans about this who, you know, I was upset and, you know, they were upset, and they said to me, it's strange, you know, I didn't cry at my auntie's funeral. And I was like, well, you know, who gave you more of the best days in your life? And it is that simple. You know, sometimes you can feel a bit silly if a musician you love or a sportsman you love passes away, because you think, well, I didn't know the person. It doesn't matter. It's the impact that they had on your life. And Walter Smith was the architect of so many of the best days of my life. And for that, I you know, sad that he's passed, sad because we will never ever see his like again, but also glad that I was around and I got to enjoy it, and just appreciative, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head with the way that you described his place in our club's history, David. But, you know, for me, it's not just what he won, and I think this is what the point you were making. It was the way in which he won it. It was the way in which he was the personification of everything that we wanted a Rangers manager to be, and everything we wanted a Ranger to be. He was, you know, he always carried himself, even when all hell was breaking loose round about him, even when, you know, it seemed like the world was going completely crazy, even for Scottish football standards. Walter was always a calm voice in it. He was always able to chart a course through the maelstrom, and, you know, that's exactly what we want. We've spent so much time, as I'm sure all the listeners and all fans have, talking about Rangers standards and what it means to be a Ranger. And, you know, Walter Smith is what it means to be a Ranger. He is absolutely everything that we wanted as a manager and as a figurehead for our club. And the day that he died, even though, you know, there'd been rumours and stories about him not being well and all this kind of stuff, just the sense of shock, I think, of knowing that he wasn't there anymore. And I remember, you know, we were all talking, and it's just hard to believe that somebody that was so ubiquitous, somebody that had been there our entire lives, you know, he came to the club in, 1986, when even old guys like us, Davey, we were young boys, and for him to not be there was just shocking almost, you know. It just, it took the wind out of you almost, just knowing that we lived in a world that Walter Smith wasn't alive anymore. And I know that sounds ridiculous and trite and perhaps even melodramatic, but that's how I felt at the time. I was just like, how could it possibly be that this man has played who's, to your point again, David, has played such an important part in my life, is no longer there? And it was just the most devastating news to hear. It was like, you know, I thought when Coop died, I wouldn't feel like that again about a Rangers or somebody associated with the club, but it was even more with Walter. It just, yeah, it's just, even now, 5 years later, you still think to yourself, I still can't believe he's gone. You know, what an impact he had. And, you know, the Rushmore analogy is right. He's for me, he's the first one that you carve in there. He's such as the impact he had across both spells at the club. So an incredible loss.
I think
I saw something when. Sorry, sure. I saw something when the Queen died, and the national sort of outpouring of grief, and someone said it's similar to when Churchill died in that it's not maybe somebody that you thought about a lot, but it was just, it's the world that you grew up in, the world that you lived in has changed. And it's such a reminder of that. And I think that's why it was so powerful. And I thought that description, the world that I lived in has now inexorably altered. That was the sort of feeling I think I got when I was coming through this, just a real sort of a sadness in the the proper sense of the word, just a deep sadness, and it tinged, as I say, with really being grateful. But sorry, Stuart, on you go.
No, of course, no. I totally agree with your points, and it's such a nice tribute to him. I think for me, I was one of the guys along with Dave in terms of who grew up having not witnessed the 90s, and 9 in a row in particular, and just sort of hearing the stories and watching the videos and the DVDs and stuff, and how sort of amazing Walter was. But then, after he left Rangers, you see him at Everton and Scotland and whatnot. And for me, Rangers had been in a period of turmoil. We've obviously covered it under sort of McLeish at the end and then Le Guin. And I don't know what it was, but I remember, David, years ago speaking to you and saying about Walter, about that, how he just made us all sort of feel in a way safe.
Yeah.
Now that was a 14-year-old saying that, and I look back on it. I always
use that line when I'm describing it. I always say, but I didn't know I say it tonight because you're here. But yeah, I do remember you saying that. You just look at him and you feel safe, and I know exactly what you meant. And you just thought he's got this.
Like, it was weird because it might sound really daft, but see those run of the mill beating St Mirren 3-0 at home, that nowadays doesn't seem that much run of the mill. Maybe it should. He had that nailed down. In Europe, he had that nailed most of the time as well. And I think his second spell, there's so many things that we went through, that the cup final against St Mirren, that he had an impact. His presence on the touchline that day.
I don't believe any manager in Rangers history, apart from him, could have won that, with maybe the possible exception of Bill Struth, who I wasn't a bit for, but in my lifetime, as much as I love Souness and some of the football he played under Advocate Arek, that we had no right whatsoever to win that game. We played with 9 men for half an hour. You lose. It's that simple. You get beat. But you certainly don't, from 0-0, go on and win. You can maybe hold out and get if you're ahead. But we won with 9 men, and I just thought, and it's things like that. It's just this. And you're right, that all the stuff we used to take for granted under him, I that's why I think our appreciation of him grows throughout the years, as we realise, actually, it's not that easy. It's not automatic. He just made it look easy.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If you look at his last season, even his last season when, we weren't in control of the title, you remember Celtic lost up at Inverness with a couple of weeks to go. And I think every one of us knew that night we'll win the league.
Yeah.
Because Walter. Because nowadays, with the great respect of our manager we've got, we would be on tenterhooks, but we'd probably go to the last day. We knew with him, at the presence, the impact that he had. And even his last game at Ibrox, he didn't let it overshadow the fact that it was his last game at Ibrox. It was all about getting the win and on to the next one. And his presence, listen, he was around the club. Even on Rangers TV during COVID, we spoke about him being on, and it was great seeing him on. And listen, it had the same impact on me because it did feel like a family member. As silly as that may seem to people that maybe don't understand football, everybody knew Walter. That's the thing. And you see him walking about Ibrox and stuff before and just getting into games like a regular fan. When you look at him, you think, you're Walter Smith. So yeah, for me, it was an incredible guy. Martin summed it up perfectly in terms of the impact he had on our history. Unfortunately for most managers, they'll always be compared to Walter, which
always.
That's the benchmark, and that's the benchmark, and that's I wouldn't change it for the world, because it wasn't just his football managerial ability as a football manager; it was everything that surrounded it and encompassed being a Rangers manager.
Yeah, I think David, your comparison, to the Queen's death is a good one, because for me,
I
Water
read it in
was,
a paper. I can't.
well, fair
I can't
enough.
claim that one.
You're
But
still in
really,
comparison.
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was appropriate when I read it. I thought, yeah, that's what it's like.
Yeah, for me particularly, because Walter was the Rangers manager when I was born, and then nobody after him could bring the success that he had until he came back, and then once again, nobody's been able to replicate what Walter did in his second spell either. It's just there's no words that you can put into that you can really do justice to. Well, I remember I had to do. A mate of mine was working for That's TV Scotland. Have you ever heard of them? One of these free view channels, and he asked me to do an interview about Walter, and I really struggled to hold it together when we got going and just talking about the man. And it's, what you talk about, Davey. He gave me so many of the best days of my life, supporting Rangers. So many those fun moments. So like that game against St Mirren at Hampden when we 9 men, and I was on the big screen that day, and there's just incredible. It's just things that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Like, I always joke about, when I'm an old disgruntled Rangers fan, talking to a young guy and blowing his ear off about, well, son, you never seen us when we're in the edge at breaking. It'll not be that I'll be talking about. It'll be, I got to watch Walter Smith's teams win titles. Of course. That's what I'll talk about.
Of course, that's his legacy. His legacy, as Stuart said there, that every Rangers manager coming in should be handed a file, really, and a DVD with all, and that, right, learn from that, because that's what we want now, with the understanding you're not that, and you can't be, and I think that, people can say the game has changed and whatnot. Well, it changed with the game. Like Sir Alex Ferguson, Walter was winning trophies 20 years, between them. These guys were, football geniuses, because they could see the changes that were coming in football, and they could adapt to them, and they managed different ways in different circumstances. And just absolutely, just an absolutely spectacular career. And we don't put up statues at Ibrox lightly, but I think that every single Rangers fan in the world would have, not only did we feel that Walter should get one, I think we would have rioted if we didn't. So, and well done to the club. It's a terrific statue, it is, and I'm glad, as Dave says, that future generations, they'll come and they'll ask, that they didn't see, who's that, and we'll get to tell them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just even now, you still find yourself thinking about him, don't you? I like the amount of times I think about the Bo Anderson game when I'm running down the touchline. One of the rare occasions that he lost his cool a little bit. Just so many wonderful memories. It's just we were blessed to have him in our lives, I think, is the way that I feel about it. And just the devastation that we felt was because of the impact that he had, and I think that's the biggest tribute you could really give him, is that he changed and he improved so many lives that he came into contact or didn't come into contact with, and he was sorely missed.
Yeah, to the point about that crossing generation, you've got the Bo Anderson game. I'll think of the Moedo game where he done the exact same thing. We scored that goal and he's running down East Enclosure again. That just wee moment of very seldom saw release from Walter and it's that's thing when you saw Walter celebrate, we've got this now. This is done.
100%.
Well, as we had to do, and I think as Walter would have wanted us to, we had to march on and play our game the next night on the 27th of October. Stuart, as I said, hosting Aberdeen at Ibrox.
Yeah, and what was sombre it was, and it wasn't a nice atmosphere getting into the game. I think everybody was still in a state of shock. However, as you're saying, but we had to play the game. The team that night was John McLaughlin in goals, a back four of James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, Leon Balogun and Calvin Bassey, a midfield three of John Lundstrom, Glenn Kamara and Joe Aribo, with Yanis Hadji and Kemal Roof supporting Alfredo Morelos up front. We started this game off atrociously. And when I say atrociously, The first goal we lost after 8 minutes. John McLaughlin passed the ball to John Lundstrom, who looked absolutely shocked that an Aberdeen player was right behind him. We then make a complete mess of it. Aberdeen pass it about us, and Christian Ramirez heads in from the back post. A terrible, terrible goal to lose. And we weren't playing well at all. We lose a corner, and on the night of all nights, we decided to let Scott Brown run in free into the box and head it in from the penalty spot to put them 2-0 up after 16 minutes. And an awful, awful way to start a game. And I'd really, really lost belief at this point. And as thankfully, 4 minutes later, across from James Tavernier and Morelos was there in the 6-yard box to get his one back. And we did put pressure on Aberdeen. We should have equalised with so many chances, particularly from set pieces, but we just couldn't get the equaliser. And it would take until the 80th minute when Fashion Sakala was brought down in the box. James Tavernier stood up for the penalty and put it away to get us back to 2-2. And it finished that. And as I said, I left the stadium that night feeling as though I think we've really, really ballsed up the start of this season with the fixtures that we had of Hearts and Motherwell and Aberdeen at home. I felt as though we've made this really hard for ourselves. And you know, Aberdeen at that point were not great under Stephen Glass. They were not a very good team, and yet we'd given them every invitation to come on to us and score goals and make things so hard for ourselves. And yeah, listen, I'll be honest, I left that night thinking I just don't know about this.
I was angry, and it's not their fault, but the emotion of the past 48 hours. I really wanted Rangers to go out there and put on a performance for us. And that's not fair. Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with you. I left Ibrox that night feeling let down, which is really unfair to put on the players.
It is. And I get, look, absolutely, right? At the end of the day, they're human beings and they're going out there and they're trying their best. You know, I understand that. They were just in pretty poor form. But it's an emotional time and it was an emotional response. And yeah, I was just exactly that. And I accept, you know, looking at it now logically 5 years on, that's unfair. You know, clear they would have wanted to go out and give us a win. But the first half hour, they were a fucking shambles. I mean, really, as Stuart said, this is a poor Aberdeen side and Rangers were atrocious. And just thundering about the second goal, just the difference between the season before and this season. We would never have lost a goal like that in a million years the year before. But everybody's just standing watching. And he runs deep from deep. That's the thing. Nobody picking him up at all. Nobody tracking it. Oh, it's horrible. Morelos gets the goal back. And I'll always remember, actually, he did his knee slide. And photoing about me were raging because of that. We're fucking, we're still losing. Don't be doing a knee slide. Go and get the ball and get back and, start again, which I think kind of tells you what the mood was like. We got back and, as you say, Stuart, it looked like it was got to be one of those nights because we missed so many chances. And then eventually we get the goal and I thought we might go on and pull out a win, but we didn't. And you're absolutely right. It was just, again, another error-ridden, casual performance that then, went into kind of just a full cavalry. We weren't bossing games anymore. It was all or nothing. We were either walking about like we were in a daze, or it was just the cavalry charge. So just a really, really disappointing night at the end of a horrible couple of days.
Yeah, and I suppose there's that expectation, isn't there? They won't go out there and do it for Walter. Before the game, that's what everybody was saying. Go give them bastards an absolute hiding, do it for Walter, and then we turn in a performance like that. And you're right. I mean, I suppose like looking back on it now, and that's the point of this show, is to be able to look back on things and have a bit of perspective on it. And you think about the impact that Walter's death would have had on actual people at the club. There'd been a lot of people who would have worked there when Walter was around, and so there'd be a lot of people very, very upset in the club and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, with perspective, I suppose you can look back on it and say, look, of course, everybody was affected by what had happened. But I suppose us as fans, we are looking for the only response we can really look for, which is our team to go out and give Aberdeen a hiding. and to do it in tribute to Walter, who had just died, and it was the precise opposite of that, because that was a shambling performance. And you're right to call out the second goal, because if you look back at that, that is as garbage a goal to concede as you're likely to see. It was absolutely horrendous. Really, really poor. And somehow we managed to get back and get the draw, because it did feel that it was just going to be one of those nights where we would huff and puff and we would have chances and we would end up getting beat. But as a matter of fact, even after we equalised, I still thought Aberdeen were going to go and win it, because it was that type of performance. But yeah, I think, Stuart, you're right. This was, I think, pointing towards where we ended up this season, which is we were just all over the shop, and we were not playing well at all, and conceding crazy goals, and all it would take really was for us to keep stumbling in that mob to get their act together, which eventually they did. And tonight was that game against Aberdeen was as poor as you're ever likely to see, notwithstanding the circumstances in which the game took place.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just that, and I just felt as though we had a lot harder fixtures coming up. Also, didn't have a clue what was round the corner in terms of the managerial situation. But yeah, for me, it was just. It was a lot. It was a tough night.
Yeah, it was a tough night all round. We didn't have too long though to sit and lick our wounds as we moved on to our next game on the 31st of October, Stuart, travelling to Motherwell.
Absolutely. So the team that day, another change in goals. Alan McGregor was in goals with James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, Leon Balogun and Calvin Bassey. Midfield of Stephen Davis, Scott Arfield and Glenn Kamara, with Joe Aribo, Fashion Sakala and Alfredo Morelos. I should really just start these games by saying we lost the first goal, shouldn't I? Because it becomes...
Or maybe just if listeners just sort of assume that, and we'll skip on...
That
save a bit of time, aye.
Motherwell scored. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of us were putting us to lose the first goal on the Coombs at this point, because it was just happening every single game. But yes,
that's on staunch.
Yeah, well, we after 13 minutes, a terrible goal. I mean, a terrible goal. A free header from a set piece. McGregor palms it out to Bevis Mugabe. He puts it in, and everyone is just rolling their eyes. Thinking,
I remember it was a Sunday afternoon, and we're all just, the boys that were there, both kind of saying, Jesus Christ, us all in the group chat going, for fuck's sake, not again.
Yeah.
It was getting to that where it's past a joke, and you're just, you can't even muster up the energy to throw your hands up in the air.
Exactly.
But what I will say is, from then on in, Rangers did go, right, fuck this, and reacted properly. Yeah,
it took us a bit of time after they scored. However, when we did, and it was a wonderful goal, Calvin Bassey with a nice cross to the back post, and James Tavernier just arrived at the perfect time. Outstanding volley, right with his laces right through it, and at the bottom corner. And we did something that we'd never really tend to do that really frustrates me, is we took advantage of that by Motherwell losing a goal just before half time by scoring another one. Nice move, Kamara. Put it down to Tavernier down the right, a really quick cross, and Sakala was at the back post, a really nice header actually. He put us ahead, which was a perfect time to get the goal. And into the second half, we were really terrific, and I mean really, really terrific. Stephen O'Donnell got sent off for Motherwell, but that wasn't stopping us. Fashion Sakala would go on to grab a second half double. Glenn Kamara with a wonderful goal from outside the box, and Kamal Roof with a typical Kamal Roof goal gave us a 6-1 victory. Sakala really gave us, because Kent had been out injured at this point, Sakala really gave us that pace that we'd missed, I think, through the early part of the season when Kent was injured, and sort of it was maybe a Hadji and a Rebo playing up front. But Sakala came in that day, and it was a complete breath of fresh air, and something that we can also talk about in future episodes. He did contribute. He did, it was as frustrating a player as you'll get, but he did have that contribute, kind of similar for me to a sort of Nacho Novo type thing, in the sense of that he always seemed to pop up. And in this game, he was absolutely terrific. Motherwell couldn't handle him at all.
Yeah, Sakala's thing was, it was too many big games where you might only get one or two chances, and he missed them, and that was the problem. But yeah, I mean, as a squad option, he was a really good signing. We got him in a free, and we sold him for $3 million and he contributed. So, perfectly decent signing. I really do. I mean, I stand by that. It was as if the Rangers team said, right, fuck this at this point, and they just went for it, and all the frustration of that start to the season just came out here in this torrent, and the second half display, boosted, as you say, Stuart, by, turning it round before half time. But too often when we'd done that through, we then gone flat again. None of that this day. The second half Rangers were sparkling. The passing was on point. The movement was great. As soon as Motherwell got the ball from us, there were 3 Rangers players hunting them down and taking it back. And by the end up, they were just, did somebody catch a number of that bus that hit us? It was that type of display. And I genuinely think for the Rangers team, it was almost like a release of that frustration and tension, and all of it just came out. And look, Motherwell away at any given point is a tough fixture. 6-1 is a fantastic result from a fantastic performance. And it was at this point you're now hoping against hope. Right, we know you can do this.
Yep.
Right, let's make this the standard, because this is what you guys are capable of. And Sakala, the hat trick, brilliant, big smile, cult hero status, as you said, maybe similar to Nacho in that regard. But it was a genuinely excellent performance from Rangers this day. And 6-1, doesn't, and as you said there, Motherwell had a player sent off, it wouldn't have mattered. They got absolutely destroyed.
I think you said something there, David, which, and maybe it is just the benefit of hindsight, but it was the knowledge that they had that in them that was so frustrating when we were going through these bumpy spells. And again, and we'll talk about it in future episodes, some of the European performances, they were just out of this world. And yet the same team could turn in absolutely turgid performances and stumble about and concede daft goals and do all that stuff that just seems so out of character from the season before, but also from the team that was able to go and turn it on and give Motherwell an absolute scudding, which is exactly what it was that day. And I suppose that's the frustration about that season, because while none of us would trade the memories that we're about to have as we work our way through this season and the European run and everything, we still won the league.
We should have won the league.
The number of games that we threw away, David, that points dropped, stupid performances, goals lost, all that kind of stuff, and it's so frustrating that when you do have performances like this, which was just completely out of this world, that you think that somehow we contrive to win the league, and that will always be a source of frustration for me, because this team should have been miles ahead at this point. And Stuart said the fixtures were pretty kind in terms of the way things had fallen in that early part of the season, and we just completely blew it. So while it was a brilliant performance, I suppose it's just the frustration. Yeah, exactly.
I think
and we'll discover
that's when the frustration. I think that's when the frustration comes, because there have been times over the last couple of years when I've been down about Rangers' performances, but people have said, "Are you frustrated?" And I'm not frustrated, because the truth is they're just not very good. Yeah. And I know that deep down. I think this is actually worse, where I think, no, they are good. They're just not showing it. That's kind of worse. Don't get me wrong, I get down and angry when Rangers aren't winning. But equally, when I sit at night, when I get in, I sit down, they're just not that good.
It's easier to accept when you look at Cole and Cameron and go,
it still hurts,
just a bit pish. Aye.
But I'm less angry, I think, when it's a team that isn't very good, where I go, do you know what, we've signed poor players, or it's a poor manager or whatever, right? But in this instance, it was, no, they are good. I know they're good. I've watched them be good. So you get, it's anger really is the main emotion, rather than, sadness or whatever.
I don't feel any league title after this season. I don't think, we should have won that one.
No, I mean, that's one we had to go out our way not to win, and we did, and that's the frustrating thing about it.
Yeah, well, Not a frustrating day, however. A nice win over at Motherwell, and that leads us back into European competition on the 4th of November as we travel to the Brøndby Stadium, which was a fitting place, Stuart, to take on Brøndby.
Absolutely. The team that night was Alan McGregor, James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, Leon Balogun and Borna Barisic. A midfield of Stephen Davis, Scott Arfield and Glenn Kamara, with Joe Aribo and Fashion Sakala supporting Alfredo Morelos. Interestingly enough, we actually played okay in this first half this night. We had a few chances. We really should have scored. Morelos missed a couple of really good chances. But it wasn't until just before half-time when a team that are losing the first goal constantly lose an own goal from Leon Balogun. From a corner in.
It was a peach of an own goal. It was a bullet header.
A brilliant header. I mean, you're just sort of laughing way where you're like, geez, oh, here we go. But to be fair, it is, and also we hadn't been great up until this point in Europe so far. We did respond. Ryan Kent came on and made a real impact early on. A really nice move between him and Glenn Kamara, and he put Yanis Hadji through, who finished it to get us back level. And we walked away with a point that night, which put us in a good position for the next game at home in the fifth game for the European games. So 1-1. Listen, I think from where we started in terms of the group, going and taking 4 points from 6 out of game 3 and 4 is actually quite a good return. And as I said, put us in a good position and back into the game at Ibrox. So all in all, a decent night, but again, just still that frustrating part. It was one of the ones we probably should have won that game, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a few stories since I was at this game covering it, and the Adam and I don't want to boast, but we walked 32,000 steps that day. Yeah, I told that's a lot.
That must be your lot. That must be your lot for the whole month. Goodness me.
Well, yeah, and it was the same when we went to Dublin for a gig a few weeks ago. 35,000 steps, which in David's steps is about 3.5 million. It's the equivalent of taking a trip to the moon for me. But anyway, we had a great day. My friend Fraser, some people will know from FF, and he's been on here before. He lived in Copenhagen at the time, so he took us out. I couldn't eat the fish, the local delicacy. I was like, nah, man, no, not for me. But I was sitting in the hotel the afternoon of the game, and David Graham phoned me. He says, where are you staying? And I told him. He says, oh, it's just down for where we are. The team. He said, come down to the hotel for a coffee. So Adam and I went down. And when we got to the hotel, there were security and stuff, and that we had to say, and they checked and let us in, because there was maybe 1,000 people outside it. And I'm like, bloody hell, Jesus, it's not like our fans to, you know what I mean? They don't do that on trips. They go to the pub. They don't all hang about outside the hotel. So I go in, I says to Davey, I was like, what's the script with that? He went, it's Liverpool fans. I'm like, what? He went, it's Liverpool Danish supporters. They're apparently massive in Scandinavia because they've showed the EPL forever. And they're here for Gerrard. And I'm like, that's how, it was just a reminder of just how famous this guy is. That there were 1,000 people. You would have thought it was like fucking One Direction were in there or something, So, all very good. We got up to the game, and I always remember this, right? The Brøndby Ultras, in collaboration with their SLO, by the way, right? The prick. He left a gate open for them so they could come and attack Rangers corporate supporters, the cowardly bastards, right? Unfortunately for them, if you asked me, would you rather attack our Ultras or our corporate guys, I would suggest to whoever doing the attack, they maybe think about it, because our corporate guys are hard as fuck, right? These are really fucking tough men, and they booted fuck at them, and it was fucking hilarious. Look at these guys with their wee masks, the type, right? And they run into all these big fucking proper Glasgow men who kicked their cunt in, and they ran off with their tails between their legs. So Rangers corporate guys won, Brøndby Ultras 0. And they were total pricks, the Brøndby fans. I remember coming out the ground after it, and the cops were being absolute wanks. They moved the buses for no reason and told told the fans, right, wait here. And then another group of cops came along, with all the kind of riot, the Robocop gear on, and they're like, what he's doing here? And they start getting the batons out. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And they got told, so I pulled out my press pass, right, and gave it the old Stan Collymore, journalist thing.
Journalist.
But Adam was taking pictures, and I think the cops were like, oh, right, we might get in trouble here. And I'm like, what are you doing? They got told. And he's like, right, okay. But there's Brøndby fans coming in to attack you and stuff. I'm like, that's your problem. It's not ours, kind of thing. And eventually, they let us out to go and walk to the buses. But it was a fucking disgrace. And you don't expect it in a place like Denmark, do you? It's Spain, maybe. But anyway, the game itself, I'll always remember there was a journalist sitting in front of us, a Danish journalist. And he turned around to us in the first half. He says, why is Hadji not playing? And we were explaining, it's like, he's not quick enough for certain matches. He likes a runner in this. And he's like, it's daft, you should be playing Hadji. Oh, fair enough. So he came on, and of course, the guy turned around and he went, see? I couldn't really argue with him at that point, could I? But, good solid point. A decent performance. And as Stuart said, we probably should have won it. But, improving.
Yes, improving. But I mean, after the disastrous start we'd had in the group, getting back into contention was always really about. So as Stuart said, that set us up nicely for the game coming back. So no matter which way you dice it up, it was a decent point, I think. And we will always have that amazing own goal to add to the collection of brilliant Rangers centre-half own goals. Big Terry Butcher had a few of them, and Leon had a. It's just nearly to the nail.
Rises like an own goal as well.
Rises like an arrow, and bullet header. Unfortunately, the wrong end.
Yeah, exactly right. It's an absolute peach.
And you're like, it's tough enough, to win in Europe, Leon, without doing that. But they did respond pretty well. And then weirdly, we've done better than Goots before and ended up going out. It meant that if we won our next match at home, we were pretty much through.
Yeah, we had to win 2-0, and then that was it, done and dusted. Which, 1-1 after 4 games, losing the first 2, kind of felt like we fell into this situation. Like, how have we managed this?
Yeah, there's been times Rangers have played a lot better in groups, and not. But hey, look, you can only do what the group is, can't you? You can only qualify from the group you're in. I remember actually, I think it might have been, it was this year actually, that Celtic got 9 points in their group and got knocked out, and their fans were raging. That's how it works, lads. You're not allowed to go to UEFA and say, this other team got less points than us in a different group. It's not how it works.
No, famously it wasn't, no.
Well, I thought it was famously, but apparently not.
No. Okay. I blame the schools personally. But we'll move on then, and the fat lady is certainly starting to warm up now as we move on to our final game for this week, and indeed Steven Gerrard's final game as Rangers manager, Stuart, as we hosted Ross County at Ibrox. And I'll be honest, Stuart, at this point, I thought we were starting to take the piss now.
You're not the only one, mate. You're not the only one. Yeah, the team that day was Alan McGregor in goals, back for James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, Leon Balogun and Calvin Bassey. Midfield 3, John Lundstrom, Joe Aribo and Juninho Bacuna. And a front 3 of Yanis Hadji, Ryan Kent and Fashion Sakala. So a few changes to freshen things up after Europe. I'm getting a bit tiresome of saying that we've lose the first goal, but it wasn't just a case that we lost the first goal here. It was a terrible goal. I mean, we are cut open. John Lundstrom genuinely looked so off the pace, if you watch this goal back, that Ross County got ahead after 5 minutes. It was truly horrific goal to lose. And I think all the fans at the stadium at this point were just like, nah. But we equalised after 19 minutes. Corner came in, Joe Aribo went to the front post and scored a goal that he should have scored a lot more, because he was always at the front post, Joe Aribo, and he was really powerful in there when he got going. And then after half an hour, a lovely goal from Ryan Kent making his return to the starting lineup. Ball came out from a corner, passed along to him, and he's just hit a sort of Ronaldo-esque shot with his laces, and it went over the goalkeeper into the top corner. It was a brilliant goal. And from then on, really, we were comfortable. Juninho Bacuna, after half-time, would score a really nice goal, and he actually played really well that day. He looked quite impressive. And then a few minutes later, it was an own goal from Alex Iacovite, I believe is how you say it, to put us 4-1 up. Of course, we lost another goal at the end. Jordan White, one of his 935 goals against Rangers.
We cannot hold that one against the team because it is inevitable. It's like rain falling, or there's nothing you can do. You just have to accept. A Rangers Inverness game back in the day would see that Graham Carey score. Yeah. Rangers Motherwell, Rob, when we were growing up, Dougie Arnott would score. Yeah. Rangers Ross County, Jordan White will score. It's like Monday following Sunday. Yeah. It's like the sun rising at the same time. There's nothing you can do about it. It is inevitable.
Yeah, I think it was Gerrard's last act as Rangers manager. It was to remind the team that Jordan White hadn't scored yet. And
yes,
guys, you're going to come on, guys. Like, what we're doing. But yeah, a good victory nonetheless. It was good to come back to sort of. And there was a little part of me that kind of thought that's 10 goals in 2 games we've scored now in the league. Maybe we're just sort of catching up a bit of form. Maybe, but no, it was a good win.
It had been a good win. And, next week we'll do his departure and we'll do it in full and go into that and his legacy. But, certainly, again, losing the opening goal. And at this stage now, there is gallows humour about it in the ground. You're like, all right, well, good. We've got it out of the way early. Right, let's now concentrate and get on. And they did. They played well. There was just a wee bit more attacking fluidity now, wasn't there? That we hadn't really seen. Yeah,
It was. I think I look at the midfield, sort of Bacuna, Aribo, and Lundstrom. I always felt this with Gerrard that when he played the attacking sort of midfielders at Ibrox, particularly, we scored more goals. Really simple as that. But I think Sakala had made a difference. I think Kent coming back in had made a difference. He had a bit more pace into the team. So overall, I was delighted.
Yeah, Bacuna was a good player. He was just inconsistent, throughout his career.
Really strange one in terms of. I do remember in this game thinking there's something about him.
He wasn't untalented. It's not that some players you sign and you can't see why. He just didn't produce it enough, and that's been the case throughout his career. But there was definitely talent there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, to me, that's what I remember about that game, other than the fact that it eventually it was clear that was the manager's last game, but it was Bacuna that game, because he hadn't really seen much of him up until then, and then he really turned it on that day. And as you say, David, if he had a level of consistency, then he wouldn't have had the career that he's had, because he's just going to bounce about the place and done very much.
The ability's there, and I think you can always tell with a player, can't you, the way that they take a ball and how they are with it and whatnot, and you could see that he had ability, but he also could disappear from matches too frequently. But I agree with Stuart. I just thought we were looking a wee bit more at it, a wee bit more fluid, and then later that week.
Yep.
I know we're going to cover it. I know we'll cover it. I know we'll cover it next week. But man, I was gutted. When the news started to break out that he was going to go. I was really devastated when Gerrard left. And as I say, we'll talk about it next week. But crikey, we're going to need the Samaritans at the end of that one, because I was properly depressed when Gerrard left.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. I'll put that in my diary to get really depressed next week. Fucking dancer.
Yeah. Fucking wait. I hope you're selling the Commonwealth Games better than you're fucking selling next week's show, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. Tune in next week, folks, for Depression.
For Depressed Rob.
Yes.
Bring your Lou Reed albums and bring your Lou Reed albums, your vodka and speed, because you'll need it.
Yeah, warm bath and an open vein. That'll be it.
Yeah.
True story. I got an email from work today with just had the heading Commonwealth Games. I thought, oh fuck, maybe they're going to give us free tickets or something. And it was literally just an email saying, make sure you leave early because there might be the roads might be busy. So cheers lads, thanks.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, it's great to know, as we've said. I mean, some people take the piss at the Commonwealth Games, right, saying that none of the major athletes are at it and it's a bit of a waste of time and whatnot. And I must admit, when Rob said he was coming back for the Commonwealth Games, I went, "Oh, are you competing?" But our mate is helping to organise it. Not quite sure what it is you're doing, Rob, but you've come all the way here for it, so there must be something. And let's hope that you bring that level of success, and that level of know-how that you brought to ScotRail, the Polis, and the SFA.
There we go. There we go.
He's on a roll.
I don't have on my bingo card for that tonight, but there you go. Yes, thank you for your kind words. I'm very much enjoying being back.
Are you getting us free tickets, Terry, and box or something?
Aye, what have you got? Aye.
We'd like to go to the bowls.
I like loads of daft sports and the else like, so I'm into this kind of thing.
No, genuinely, we would like to go to the bowls.
I'd
hand to the bowls.
Aye.
Actually, the bowls is a serious business in the Commonwealth Games, by the way. Let's properly.
It's desperate. Look, no, we are not taking the piss. We would love to go to the bowls.
It sounds so staunch that it doesn't put Heart and Handy out at the bowls. It sounds really
That's the staunchest sentence ever.
Jack's sitting there. Jack's a Crown Green bowler, folks. So Jack will be sitting there going, "Oh, he's left it a bit too," and we'll have our own wee expert there. So, genuinely.
There's a show in there, Bowl in Hand or something. The pieces are there.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, right, we'll leave that with you, Rob.
Yeah, we'll speak to you next week, Rob. Get that sorted for us this week. Perfect.
Leave
good lad.
that with me. We'll update it next week.
When's it start again?
As we're recording, this is Tuesday and it starts on Thursday.
Right, okay, cool. So tomorrow, for those of you listening. Mm-hmm. So get home from Ibrox and then get the calendar out and start planning what events you're going to see.
I'm sure we'll all be rushing to do that. Right, anyway, we will leave it there for this week. As we said, we'll have a big show when we come back next week to bitch, moan, cry and depress ourselves. But until then, I am just going to thank my three fabulous co-hosts for helping me through yet another show. Firstly, a big thank you to David.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Big thank you to Stu.
Pleasure, mate.
And big thank you to Mr. Compo himself for Rob Shorthouse.
We'll see you at the bowls. Thanks very much, guys.
Yes, indeed. We'll see you all at the bowls. You heard it here first. Rob's going to get us all sorted. All the hosts and all the listeners. Right. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll speak to you again soon.
Let's go. Shoot them in the back now. What they want, I don't know. They're all revved up and ready to go. We're moving in a straight line. You're going through a tight one. The kids are losing their minds. This street pop. The pilot in the back seat. The generator still heat. What's safe in the back beat. This street pop. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go.
That was a Heart and Hand production.